right, we are live. We are live.
Wait, are we live already?
Mm-hmm. Trying to see if anyone has joined. Let me see if I can send this link to some folks. I don't know if this is going to work well. Trying to see if anyone has joined. Let me see if I can send this link. Ooh, okay. Copy. Okay, I don't know.
It is 7 p.m. Thank you for running on time, my friend.
Yes.
Just wanted to mention that.
Yes. Trying to be on time tonight. Says we have one viewer, so I don't know if that's you or someone else. So if it's not you, welcome, whoever joined.
It's definitely not me. It may be a friend, maybe Alexis. Alexis, are you on?
Now it's 0.
Oh. So Alexis told me that she was going to try to log on early because she logged on at 7:30 last time and she felt like she had missed some relevant things, and so she was feeling some kind of way. So,
yeah, we'll just wait a couple more minutes though. We will wait for some people to join us.
How's your day going, my friend?
It's going good. I cannot complain, and if I did, it wouldn't change anything. So everything is wonderful. What about you?
That part.
How are you? How's everything?
Good, you know. Like you said, I can't complain. So there's. I actually had a really bad day, but we already talked about this, so it's fine.
It's gonna work out though. It always does. It always works out. Okay, let me just see if anyone has joined us. One person. Did you mute yourself?
I did, just because my baby is listening to cartoons and there was a dog barking outside, so I just didn't want the background noise to be a little too much.
It's okay, girl.
Yeah.
That is okay.
So, if you see me here, hopefully I don't have any technical difficulties and all of that stuff.
I'm sure it'll be great. It'll be fine. Okay, do we want to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tanisha Inspires, where you guys know I talk all things mind, body, and soul. I am joined here by Arte, which I'm super excited. This is our second live stream ever, and we are talking about motherhood, y'all. The things they don't tell you. We want to do a couple backgrounds so you kind of know like where we're at in our motherhood stages, and then we're just going to talk about stuff that, like, you know, if you're thinking about having kids, if you're pregnant, you know, we just want to keep it real with you guys so that there are no like surprises. I think there's a lot of surprises. So, Arte, do you want to give a little bit of background of your baby and kind of where you are?
I have a very long pregnancy / motherhood story, which we don't really have to talk about. But some of it is I was not able to get pregnant for a very long time. So I have been married for 7 years now, and I had my baby in July. So he is 9 months today. Yeah. And so I laugh with all my friends because I say I'm kind of a hippie. And everybody else says I'm kind of a hippie too. So I'm really funny about just like the kinds of things, you know, I give to my son and, you know, the kind of things that I'm putting in his system. So at 9 months, he is still breastfeeding. When he was going through that period where he was pureeing, we were doing foods. I was blending all his foods by hand, buying organic vegetables, nothing, you know, that had preservatives, nothing canned. And so, you know, I'm just still in the middle of that journey. I'm like basically on the tail end of what you will call like the 4th trimester / postpartum. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. And then a little bit about me. So I have a 7-year-old, and the funny story, her dad was in the military for the first 4 years of her life. So I always consider myself a single parent. I did have help here and there, but a lot of it was on me. So literally, he was there for the birth at the hospital. He had to leave, I think, 2 days later. And then it was all like, here's the baby, go figure it out. So I think my experience has been very different than Arte's experience. And, we're going to just give kind of our perspective and just our story, because I think it's important that women talk about these kind of things, especially just what they've dealt with when it comes to parenthood, maybe the struggles that they're currently dealing with. And hopefully we have a community where you guys can say, hey, try this or try that, right? I think this should be a non-judgmental zone, right? This should just be open forum. So if you guys are drinking your wine or eating popcorn, just hang out with us. Feel free to ask questions, talk to us throughout this whole thing. We're going to try to make this a little shorter than last times, but we really want to interact with you guys. So we're going to start today. This is actually going to be a 5-part series. So this is part 1 of several. We're going to talk hopefully 4 or 5 things today about things, again, they don't tell you about motherhood that we wish we would have known. So let's talk first about our body. Okay, so let's talk about the changes in our body. I think for me, it was so interesting because the reason I found out I was pregnant is I started peeing a lot. And it's so interesting. People make fun of me, but I feel like that night that I got pregnant, I felt it. I felt like, I don't know how to explain this, y'all, but I felt different.
Wait, you literally, okay, so not to cut you off, but you definitely called, your close circle of friends, and you were like, I'm pretty sure I'm pregnant, guys. And we're like, that was a week ago.
Right. It literally is
there's no way you know that.
Yeah. For me, I instantly, because I know my body, right? So I'm very in tune with how I'm feeling. And for me, I'm just like, my body feels different. And then a couple of days later, I started peeing a lot. And I'm like, this is so weird. Why am I peeing? And then I would have kind of like pelvic pains. I don't know if any of you guys experienced that, or back pains, probably within like the first 5 weeks. And I'm just like, man, this is really weird. So talk about like kind of your experience. I know mine, I kind of knew instantly. Like, how did you know you were pregnant, and if you experienced some of those like things early on?
So because I had issues with getting pregnant, pregnancy was the very last thing that I thought that whatever was going on with me, it could be. So literally I had like a monthly thing that I did. So my period was usually pretty on time. So if it wasn't on time, within about 2 days, I would usually take a pregnancy test. So this time I'm like, okay, it's 3 days late, but happened once or twice here or there in the past, however many years. And
because wasn't your period irregular? Not to cut you off, but did you experience irregular periods?
No, I never experienced any irregular periods. So background story, I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis and had surgery. Basically, I had a laparoscopy to kind of just clear out everything that was in there. I had a frozen pelvis. So they kind of had to basically like do a protocol where they put me on a medication that kind of just stopped my periods for like 6 months. It kind of put me into early menopause, but it allowed my body to heal and rest. And they basically like put my ovaries away from everything else so that all my organs and everything could heal. And then my ovaries were still, properly working.
Wow.
Then they could heal too. So I had to go back to surgery and have them take the sutures out and drop my ovaries back into place and kind of, just get my body back regularly flowing. So I had the surgery. So this is after 6 months of no periods, no nothing, right? And I had the surgery to drop everything back into place and to get everything functioning back again in September. And by October, I was pregnant.
Wow,
okay. So I had the surgery like September 30th and October 30th, somewhere in there. That's where the pregnancy thing happened. So I went to homecoming and was drinking like normal, hanging out. And me and Brad went to a party and I almost fainted. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, this is so weird. Like, what is the problem? Like, I usually can dance all night long, and I was like, Brad, you're going to have to take me home. Like, I don't feel good. Like, something is not right. And then that next week, I went and got a pregnancy test done. And that thing popped up positive so fast. And I was like, dang! Like, how did this happen? Like, you know how it happened, but how did this happen?
Yeah. Because y'all, like you said, you guys have been trying for 7 years to actually advocate?
We've been married for 7 years now, but I actually officially stopped taking birth control in 2016. So it had been about 4 years of me getting a regular period every single month and nothing happened. So I was at that point where I was like, there's no kid coming out of here. Like, it's not even, it's never going to happen.
Yeah. So, were you thinking about adopting at that point in time, or what made you, go to the doctor finally? Like, what actually, especially for those who may be struggling with getting pregnant or have doubts that they will get pregnant, like, what advice do you give to those moms?
Honestly, I think that as women, we experience issues with our cycles regularly, I think we're not proactive enough. As far as, they say the average woman with endometriosis, it takes her about 10 years to get diagnosed, and that's pretty much what happened with me. There were years where Brian would have to take me to the hospital. This was, and before we had started trying and figuring out that we were trying to have a kid and all of that. And I remember like going to the hospital one time, and I was just like, yeah, I'm having these weird feelings, down there. I feel like I'm sitting on a ball. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, I feel like there's something inside, and it feels like I'm sitting on the ball. And they could never tell me what it was. I regularly had ultrasounds done and went to multiple different doctors, and they all told me different things. But a lot of times I would get a doctor that would say, I don't see any evidence that you have any issues with your period. So, you're fine. Okay, 2-3 years have passed. Like, there's obviously something going on, and I had always had painful periods, and even people we went to college with now tell me, like, yeah, I remember you dealing with that when we were in college, and I always just brushed it off. I never thought that it was serious enough that, I think people kind of desensitize you to what you're supposed to feel every month when you're going through a period, and it does everybody such a disservice, because honestly, like, as Black women, we already are at risk for many health issues. So when we're experiencing things, we don't need to let you have to be your own advocate, right? And you don't want to let people downplay what you're feeling, tell you that it's not serious, because I am a testimony to that, somebody can tell you it's not serious, and it is. When I came back from my surgery, my husband and my mom cried. Because they were like, you had no idea, that this was what you had going on. So, you really have to be very serious about your health. So for any woman who's out there who's struggling, there are a lot of women out there who are going through it. So don't feel like you are alone in the world. And, they do make it hard for you to feel comfortable with talking to people about it. And there is lots of pressure, especially once you're married. Oh, when is your kid coming and all of that? So block out all that stuff and worry about your health and worry about how you feel. And as long as you feel good every day and doing what you need to do, then, God is going to deliver whatever you're supposed to have, whether it's, to be childless or to have a child,
I love that. Yeah. So. I think that's so important. You hit on a key of you need to make sure you get checked regularly. If you feel like something is wrong, go get checked. And if you don't like what one doctor says, go to another doctor. Get several recommendations. There's a lot of great doctors out there. And hopefully I don't know, you're definitely in Baton Rouge. So maybe you can shout out some different doctors that actually were good. But I just think it's very important that you guys know your body. So moving on, when you finally got pregnant, right, after all that time of trying and all kind of stipulations and trials and tribulations, you got pregnant immediately, right? Like a month later. How did you know you were actually pregnant? I know you said you went to a party, and I know he said, you know, you wanted him to take you home. So, and I think you said you went home and immediately took a pregnancy test. So like, tell us kind of after that point, when you found out you were pregnant, like, were you super scared, and did you have certain symptoms, and how was your pregnancy?
So you know how my pregnancy was because we talked almost every day. Okay. Pregnancy, to be honest with you, was a breeze for me. And I know that it's not every woman's experience. The first 12 weeks, I was dead tired. I mean, like, I was trying to study for finals. I couldn't even get up and study. I mean, it was really, really bad. Luckily, my mom came and stayed with me for about 4 weeks, from weeks 8 to 12. So she literally, like, I just slept all day, and my mom would like go and like bring me food, you know, like bring it to me in bed. Like she's like waited on me hand and foot, as well as my husband too. So I mean, my experience with pregnancy was not that bad. At the beginning, as you were saying, there were some little, you know, things are shifting and moving around and trying to, your body is making room for the baby. I did have a little bit of spotting at the beginning. And because I had never been pregnant before, it was a new experience for me. I went to the doctor because I'm like, oh my God, I'm scared. Like, what's going on? You know, and the doctor was like, this baby is in here and they're fine. Okay. So, you know, I think when you're going through your first pregnancy, for sure, everything is like, dude, you're like, oh my God. I saw a spot, you know, when I went to the restroom. Oh my God, you know, is this kid okay? And, you know, I think that's just a natural part of the process. They don't really tell you how scared you're going to be because, you know, miscarriage is not talked about a lot, and people, when they go through miscarriage, don't always feel comfortable to talk to people about it. So there's all these other fears, right? You don't want to tell people until you hit a certain week and all this other stuff. And, you know, I think that as a society, we just got to normalize all this stuff. Like, it's just a natural part of life, you know, and
absolutely.
We just got to normalize it. But for me, you know, I besides being dead tired for the first trimester, I really didn't have too bad of an experience. I complained a lot.
You were very dramatic. She was very, very dramatic. So y'all, like, everything was, is this normal? What is this? I don't understand. This and that, this and that. Like, it was every 2 days. Like, we would be texting each other on the side, like, what is wrong with this girl? And me, you know, sometimes I'm very blunt. I'd be like, you're doing too much, right? But it's interesting because when you're pregnant, I know I also had a very smooth pregnancy. I was just depressed. I dealt with a lot of depression because, again, I was doing it on my own. I did not have a lot of family support, and it was just very, very hard. You know, you have in your mind this experience that you're going to have like your husband there, and, you know, you're going to have all your friends and family around, and that just wasn't my story. And so I remember being at work crying constantly. I would go in the corner, or I would just like cry at my desk and try to do my work. I, you know, dealt with I hid my pregnancy for a long time. I was actually on a contract, and I was afraid of losing my job, you know, because that's a real thing too, where, you know, people, for whatever reason, they think, oh, because you're pregnant, we may lose you, or whatever the case is. And so I hid it for probably 6 months. And I remember I wore this skirt at work one time, and I ended up going kind of sideways, and I had a belly at that point. And one of the managers was like, are you pregnant? I said, no, I'm just gassy, right? Like, because I was like, I didn't want anyone to knock me out or say that, you know, you're not going to hire me because I'm pregnant. So I think for me, going through that was very, very difficult. Very traumatizing, but the actual like pregnancy, like that part was fine. I will say I was very gassy a lot too. I peed constantly. I think when you are pregnant, like you are like a pee master. So when you go to the doctor, and they always ask for like pee samples. Like I would pee right before, and then I would literally go to the doctor and I'd be able to do it in a snap. Like I was down to a science. I don't know if you had that same experience, but I'm like, I was
okay. So I'm not a good example because I don't have a good bladder, right? So I've always been able to pee on command. So
okay.
like it didn't really change that much for me. The only time I feel like it was dramatically different was third trimester when he was sitting on my bladder and I would like go to appointments and they'd be like, "Oh, you don't feel that?" And I'd be like, "Feel what? Him kicking me like he does all day long?" And he was like literally like going like this, pitter pattering on my bladder, and I'm like, "Oh, this is why I have to pee all the time."
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, the gassiness, they don't tell you about that, which I kind of feel like it went away after the first trimester, though. It wasn't too bad. Really?
Yeah. Not until she was happy.
They don't tell you, I feel like, about, I didn't have heartburn, but a lot of people tell me that they have a lot of heartburn. I didn't get hemorrhoids, but a lot of people get hemorrhoids. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they just kind of
don't tell you. Especially water intake. I think it's so important to make sure you're hydrated. Because as pregnant women, I remember fainting one time. I was standing up for too long and I fainted, and it literally is because I didn't have enough water. So I think that's another thing that they kind of tell you. Your body odors may change, right? Like you may smell a little differently. And, I remember going to the doctor and I was like, I smell different. Oh my God, what's wrong with me, right? And so she was like, no, that's normal. So it's like, they don't tell you these things, right?
And it doesn't necessarily smell bad. And that's what I think, some of these things, it's part of the experience as you're going through pregnancy, right? So, but like your body, like your pH, your hormones are so different. It definitely changes and you're just like, it's something wrong. Oh God. It's not necessarily like a bad smell. It's just like, to me, it was way more intense. And then your sense of smell.
Oh my gosh. I think that is also something very early on, right? Like, did you experience where you smell things I almost felt like I was like a dog. And you know how dogs have like a super sense of like smell? I was like, oh my God, I smell things I've never smelled before. Like, how was your experience when it came to smelling?
Yeah, no, my experience was that probably was like the heightened sense of smell was like the big thing. And it was all pregnancy long. Like, even like third trimester, I still was like, oh my God, what is that smell? But luckily I did no throwing up. I had a little bit of nausea, but I mean, even the heightened sense of smell, it wasn't like the end of the world because, it was fine.
I love that. Let me see if anyone has sent anything in our chat. Let me see. Okay, we don't have anything yet, so that's okay. Okay, so let's talk about our actual body weight change. So one of the things they tell you is you're going to gain weight, right? And some people, they're like, oh, you're going to gain 50 pounds or some people 20. So I remember I went through this stage where I was like, I'm not going to get fat. I'm not going to get big. And I remember eating salads and I would be starving afterwards. I remember like doing all kind of things to where I wouldn't eat, because I'm like, I'm
was this during pregnancy or after?
This was during pregnancy. So during pregnancy, I was very scared about gaining a lot of weight. And so I was working out. I really tried to watch what I ate, and it was a lot for me. I think I gained probably 25 to 30 pounds maybe, which is supposed to be kind of the average. But I will say that after I had my child, I still have not lost the baby weight. And I think that's also something very interesting because I feel like right beneath the belly button, like there's that little bit of fat. Like even when you're skinny, I feel like every mom has that little bit of fat. No matter how hard you work out. The mom belly.
Yes, mom belly is definitely a real thing. I'm 9 months out, so I feel like I can't even participate in this conversation. I'm super fluffy still and was not expecting that. But, I consider myself, even though my friends would say opposite, to be a very selfish person. Okay? And when I say I'm selfish, I like things just like my way. Like I just like So my body's got to be my way. And I think one of the hard parts about pregnancy that they don't really explain to you is if you have issues with your body image or with your body, pregnancy is going to bring them out and it's going to make them even worse, because anything that you had going on before, you would do something to try to control it. When you're pregnant, you cannot control it. Like, you can do whatever you want to do. You can try to eat salads. You can try to not eat. You can do whatever. That baby is going to, like, change your hormones, change your cravings, and, you know, that child is going to eat, like, even during pregnancy. My appetite was very suppressed when I was pregnant. So I didn't really experience a lot of that. I did have some weird cravings, but it wasn't anything really odd. I ate ice cream every day. That was probably the big thing. But, you know, other than that, I'm like, when I got hungry, like I got to that point, it was like I had to eat. Like, there was no, you know, like, oh my God, I'm just gonna eat a piece of celery. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. So, you know, there are a lot of women, especially a lot of brown skin and dark skin women, who get really, really bad stretch marks. And like you said, it is a badge of honor. It is a gift to be able to carry a child. So wear them tiger stripes with pride, sis. That's all I gotta say.
I love that. I love that for you. And I love that for me. I got a couple stretch marks, but it wasn't anything crazy, so I don't know. I also was very fearful of having stretch marks, so everyone was like, use this oil. And so, like, I always was greased down, like, from head to toe. I had a lot of acne, so that was a struggle because, you know, my hormones were out of whack. Like, it was a lot going on. But let's move forward to this baby. Let's talk about actually, like, birth. So we have two different experiences when it came to actually birthing the child. I'll go first because mine's not that long. So for me, it was very interesting because it was probably like 10 o'clock at night. And I remember just feeling some contractions, and the contractions didn't go away. And I said, this is it, right? So many people are like, is this going to be it? Like, I have contractions, but like, I knew. So I didn't have really contractions before that. If I had a contraction, it was like maybe one or two. But it became so real and so strong. And I got so excited. I remember getting in the shower because I was like, oh my God, like, I have to be clean. I want to make sure I'm shaved because, you know, all these doctors are going to be looking at me and I got to make sure I'm clean. So that was my thing. And then I also had a bag where I had music. Like, I had all kind of stuff. I was like, okay, when I go into this, I want that. I requested a suite because I was like, oh, I want a big room. And so I remember literally getting in the hospital, and Ken actually came down, which was really cool because we were worried that, like, he wasn't going to be able to see the birth of his child. So that was really, really awesome. And when he came down, it took him a while to come over and take us to the hospital. And so by the time I got to the hospital, they said I was already 8 centimeters dilated. Now, when I got to the hospital, I was like, well, I have to take a bath. One of my things is like, I just wanted to take a bath. I was like, we're going to use this suite. If I'm going to have this suite, let me use it. So I remember asking Ken to turn on the music, and I wanted to have like a certain playlist. And I remember taking a little bath, and they came out and they're like, okay, you got your 8 centimeters. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for my medicine, right? Like, I'm ready to get this medicine. They said, you're too far along. I remember yelling. I said, no, like, I literally yelled because I was like, I wanted drugs, right? Like, everybody's supposed to have drugs. I want drugs. And unfortunately, I delivered within 2 hours. By the time I got to the hospital, I delivered. And it was scarring, y'all. Like, they tell you about, I'm not trying to scare y'all, but they tell you about having this pain and that you're going to forget it and all this other stuff. I haven't forgot the pain. Like, I have not. I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember everything just kind of stretching. I mean, they were like, push. And I said, I'm tired of pushing. I said, I don't want to push no more. Like, they're like, just do 1 or 2 more. I don't want to do this. I'm tired. And I remember I told him in the middle, I said, I'm going to take a break. I said, I'm done. So I took a little break. Everybody was like rolling their eyes and all this other stuff. Because I'm like, first of all, I'm not on drugs. I feel all this. I feel all this expanding. And I just, you know, like, you have this big old kid. Now, mine was only 6 pounds and 10 ounces. But I'm like, I ain't used to pushing them like that through me, right? So for me, it was a very traumatic experience, but I also was very looking back on it. I'm like, I deliver without any drugs and I deliver within 2 hours. Like that's unheard of for a lot of women. So anyway, that was my story. Tell me about your birth story.
You have the best birth story, friend.
I don't know.
Mine's terrible. So, I thought I lived throughout my pregnancy. I used to bounce on my little basketball. I used to shred, meditate, all these things. I bought a tens machine. I just knew that I was going to do this delivery without drugs, right? Because I don't like to put drugs in my body, and I'm just like, oh, I got a kid come out. I don't, want to put drugs in my kid's system before they get here, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So everybody's like, your water's not going to break, so don't worry about that. Lie. Number one, that people talk about, which is untrue. I had diarrhea one night, and I'm like, man, I wonder if he's coming, because about a week before that, I just started feeling weird. Like it was just I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like you just know they're coming because you just start feeling like odd. I don't know. So when I had diarrhea like a week after that, I was like, okay, I think this is it. So I was just waiting. I was like, oh, contractions are gonna start like any second now. Me and Brad had put like a towel, like a tarp in the bed, like in case, I had like some leak issues, like in the middle of the night, because I was feeling so weird. So I'm still on virtual school in class, and I had the most intense urge for a turkey burger. So I went and got a turkey burger. And I got a mint chocolate chip milkshake. I don't know why I needed this. Went to go eat my turkey burger, ate it in the car, almost demolished it. I had like 2 bites left. And I had sip on the shake. And when I get back home, I'm like listening to class. I'm probably about halfway through class. And this was the week before class was about to end. So I had finals like that next week. So I'm like feeling really weird, and it was like a running joke in our house about how much I peed on myself, right? Because your bladder sucks when you're pregnant, and third trimester is just like your bladder is demolished. So I was like, oh, Brad, I think I peed on myself. So he's like, oh, like, our normal running joke or whatever, right? So then I'm like, oh, it's still coming out. I'm like, okay, this is a little weird. We're sitting in our living room. I'm on class. I got 2 bites left of my turkey burger. Like, me and Brian are talking, but I'm like trying to listen to class. It's like 1,000 million things going on. So finally, I'm like, oh, I don't think it's stopping. I was like, that's kind of weird. So I stood up and I was like, let me hurry up and try to rush to the bathroom. So, like, even though it's a little liquidy, I'll be able to get to the restroom and pee in the toilet. When I stood up, friends, water everywhere. Everywhere. All over the floor. I was like, oh my God, where'd you go? And I'm like, when I tell you, tears are streaming down my face, but I'm chuckling because I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe my water just broke. Like, everybody told me this was not going to happen to me. Like, my water really just broke. So Brad goes to get a towel. He's cleaning up the floor. And I go to the restroom, and it's still like coming out. And I was like, oh my God, this is the weirdest experience. And if your water breaks, it's very odd. It's like clear, but like white and milky. It's very odd looking. Like, it's very, very weird looking. So the doctor had told us, if you start having contractions, wait it out. If your water breaks, you're considered more high risk. You need to like immediately go to the hospital. So Brad is frantic. He's running around here. I think somebody told him to take a shot, so he took a shot of alcohol so that he could kind of make his way to the hospital with me. So, and luckily our hospitals, I don't even know if it's 2 miles away. So I got in the shower because I just didn't want to be like grimy, and this was during COVID. So I also was like I don't want COVID germs on me. Like, I want to wash before I get there. And so we get there, and everything's going good. I'm bouncing on the ball. I get in the water. I'm progressing. I think when I got there, I was like 5 or 5. I was 4. Thank you, my husband, for the win. I was 4. So I was like, oh, we're good to go. I'm just going to go on, And I think within 4 or 5 hours, I was at 8. So I was like, okay, we're doing good. But the contractions had started to get really, really, really intense. And I said, I know I'm not even a medicine person. I said, but I just need something to kind of get me through. So I told them, don't give me an epidural, give me an IV drug. They kept asking me if I wanted to start Pitocin. I said no, because Pitocin really amplifies your contractions and makes them stronger. And there's a good purpose for it, because it basically is the medical version of oxytocin. And so oxytocin is what your body naturally creates to get the baby out. But when they give you Pitocin, it kind of like breaks that up. Like your oxytocin times 40 or whatever. So I already knew how I was feeling without it. So I said, no, like, let's stay away from that. So they gave me an IV drug, and she was like, just to let you know, she was like, we can only give you this twice. And she was like, once we give you this twice, she was like, we have to level you off, like, and then you're done with it. I can't even remember what it was they gave me. So I was 8, and I took that, and they checked me 4 hours later, and I was 8. Okay, so I had not progressed at all. So we got there at like 7:30. Now it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So I'm like, man, like, I'm struggling. So they're like, let's try to give you the Pitocin and see what happens. So they gave me the Pitocin. They're checking his heart rate, making sure he's still healthy. Everything's good. Another 4 hours go by. I'm at 8. So now I'm getting texts from you. You're one of the people who I'm getting texts from, phone calls from people. Where's the baby at? You've been there a long time. It's been almost a whole day at this point, because I've been 8 hours basically at 8. And so finally, I was just like, this is not what I wanted to do, but I'm going to need the epidural because I can't, like, I'm tired. I can't continue at this rate. And they were like, normally we wouldn't give anybody epidural 8. There's no way, like, because you're too far into the process. But because I had stalled so long, they're like, oh, we got time to give you epidural because it looks like you're going to stay at 8. So I got the epidural. And there was some kind of, where they felt like he was kind of in the wrong position, and that's why he stalled. It wasn't like he was breached or anything like that. They just thought that maybe he was a little, like, turned to the sideways a little bit. So what they did was, throughout the night and the day, after they gave me the epidural, because you can't feel your legs once you get the epidural, they flipped me. So they would come in every 2 hours and flip my legs over. Then another 2 hours, flip my legs over. Then another 2 hours, flip my legs over. So they probably did that for another 8, at least. So, at this point, there's this thing called dry birth. It's like a big deal. When your water breaks, you don't have anything surrounding the baby anymore. And lack of oxygen and some other things that can happen to the baby if they go into distress. Luckily, my kid did not go into distress at all. Like, had no issues. He was just taking his time, okay? And so finally, 36 hours later, he showed his face. But it was a very, very, very long process. Before I got on epidural, me and my husband both cried, okay? Because I didn't want it. I was so stressed about having it. And I had done all these things to prepare myself so that I wouldn't get it. And when you get there, you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't know what's going to happen. The same thing that happened to you, basically. Like, you thought you were going to be able to get an epidural, and it didn't happen. So, why they are here?
We do want to see the baby before we leave, though. So we want to see him.
Yeah. So honestly, if you definitely, when you're going through birth, you just have to be flexible because you never know what's going to happen when you get there, when you're there. And again, as I said it before, make sure if you can't advocate for yourself, you have someone there who's going to advocate for you, because these hospitals will take advantage of you, and because they feel like you don't know anything, and they will do whatever, I didn't want to get an epidural, and I was very serious about that, and I did wait a long time, but I'm glad I waited as long as I did, because, it's just like, oh, you just want to stick everybody with an epidural, and it's just like, sometimes it's not necessary. In my situation, it did end up being necessary. But, I just think you kind of have to have an idea of what you want, and you need to know what your limit is, especially when you have a partner or a spouse that's with you. Like, they need to know what your limit is. And, it's very hard for your partner / spouse to see you in pain. And that's the part I think that people don't understand. It's very hard for people who love you and care about you to see you suffering and struggling. And childbirth,
it's real.
It's a suffer and a struggle. Okay.
It's real, y'all. It's real.
Okay.
It's real. Let me see if anyone has any questions. Let me see. So it looks like a couple things. One says, how do you know when it's time to have the baby? So I think we talked about that. We just, at least for me, I knew I had contractions, right? And I think for you, your water broke. And then we have another one that says, do you think you haven't lost the weight due to stress of life and having to take care of a human being? That's a good question.
No, because those stresses of life, when you have a kid, you add additional stress. Don't get me wrong, but your life is still your life. You still handle stress the same way. You still deal with stress the same way. The only thing I think that's dramatically different that we kind of didn't talk about is, and I think that was going to be like our next topic, when you're in postpartum, which is that fourth trimester or whatever you want to call it, your hormones are so out of whack, and I don't care who you are. You can be in the gym all day long. Your hormones sometimes they're going to hold you back from being able to lose the amount of weight that you want to lose, because your body is it's not the same. You can handle the stress beautifully and love motherhood and think your life is perfect, and you still might not be able to drop the weight. So, it's definitely just a learning and growing process as you're learning. Most of the time when I talk to moms, the first thing they tell me is it took me a year to feel like myself again. And I think I'm just now, as he's hitting 9 months, starting to feel normal, I guess you would call it. So, no, I don't think so, but I don't know. What do you think, T?
So, I mean, I see the moms, right, that have lost the weight, or they're skinnier now than they used to be. And I do think that stress plays a role, because when you have a kid, you now got to take care of this thing 24/7. Like, you don't have the freedom that you used to. And I think that's something people don't tell you about. Like, you are a slave to this child, right? Like, you can't do nothing without thinking about feeding this kid, making sure this kid is, clean, making sure this kid is happy. Like, everything, your whole life changes to this child, and everything around you has to adopt to this child, right? In this new way of life. So I do think that stress definitely plays a point in that. I do think because you're always on the go with the child and you're always trying to do something to make sure the kid is good, like, I think sometimes we suffer and we just eat the quickest thing, right? Or we just eat what's around, or we just go up the street and get Sonic, or whatever the case is, because we don't have time. We're sleep deprived. I think in one of our series, we're going to talk about the lack of sleep. We're going to talk about always hearing a baby crying, your breast always, milking, leaking, right? That was something I experienced. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we want to talk about in obviously these series, but I do think that, losing weight has been a struggle for a lot of women. Now, if you guys have tips, please comment below so we can try to get some tips and, see if we can. I'm 7 years in and I still haven't lost all my baby weight. I'm close, but I'm not there yet. So I think I'm within like 7 pounds to actually get pre-pregnancy weight. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention too, I think the type of support system you have helps a lot, because if you have a good support system, or you have people around you that are like, don't eat that, or you need to go to the gym, those kind of things I think help you bounce back a little faster too when you have that, where it's like, oh, I don't have to worry about where my kid is going to be. I can go to the gym for an hour. I think that's really important too. And people discount that aspect of it because it's super hard to do it by yourself. I had a spouse, and it's the most difficult thing probably that I've ever done. I mean, every day we literally like, oh my God, we kept the kid alive for one more day. So, it's super difficult. And like, if you have like a really strong support system, and people like will say that they'll be there, but they're not. Like, people who actually like legitimately like show up, will be there to watch your kid, like let you get a nap, let you get a break. Like, that's going to help tremendously when you're trying to like lose the weight, as far as like watching what you eat and get back in the gym and all of that.
Absolutely.
So
I think your screen froze, but let me see if there's anything else. So Ashley said, that's so true. No matter how much you plan, you never know how it's going to go down, which is so true. So yeah, I mean, we are almost at an hour and we have not really even hit all of our topics that we want. So I think we are going to shut it down for the night. Do you guys have anything else that you guys want us to talk about real quick? I'm going to look at the comments and see if there's anything else. Anything? Or Tay, any last comments you want to say?
No, I always enjoy conversing with you, my friend. So I appreciate the talk. I don't think people talk about motherhood or their birth stories or anything enough. So it's just good to have it out there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you joining me. I love that, you're 9 months in, so you're at a different phase than me. So it's really great to kind of hear your story and kind of the things that you've gone through, and even your struggle even getting pregnant. Like, I think a lot of women still, deal with that, or, they have that desire, and just hearing that testimony from you and what you were able to accomplish, I think is just great. I mean, obviously it's all God at the end of the day, but you took the steps necessary to, do what you needed to do. And so super just grateful for you, grateful for our conversations. This is stuff that we talk about all the time, y'all. So we just thought it'd be good just to talk with other women. So does anyone have any like crazy birth stories that they want to talk about, or anything like that? Ashley said that's true too. It's hard to get away and go to the gym. So yes, that is so true. Anything y'all want to talk about?
It's hard. And when you're breastfeeding, it's even more difficult.
Yeah.
So
we need to talk about breastfeeding.
Super hard. Yeah, super hard.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually do want to shout out. It's We Are Kindness, or Wear Kindness, wearkindness.co. A friend of mine started a t-shirt line. So they have some cute items. Y'all want to go and buy a couple things. I'm sure you would appreciate the support. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll add that to the description. So if you guys are interested, we will definitely add that to the description box. All right, so I think this is going to be it. I'm just going to check one last time. Looks like nothing else. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We plan on trying to do these weekly on Fridays. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for your time. You guys have a wonderful evening, and we will catch you guys hopefully next week. You guys stay safe. Bye, everyone.